My name is Michaelangelo Masangkay. I am the president and founder of SINÉ Institute, a non-for-profit organization that caters towards spotlighting Filipino-Canadian talents in creative industries. I'm also the director of production here at Toronto Film School and also the general manager of Raven Banner Entertainment here in Canada, which is an international sales agent, Canadian distributor, and producer of films in the genre of action, horror, thriller, sci-fi. My family immigrated in two parts. My mom immigrated first, met up with her sisters here in Canada, and then my father followed here a couple years later. This was in the late 70s. Shortly thereafter, they had me in 1979. The most indelible memories that I have, because I'm born here, the strength of the family in terms of supporting themselves in a place that's completely foreign, completely brand new, and they're trying to keep their values and their principles about them while immersing themselves in a completely different place that is from weather to culture to expectations of what they can accomplish and what was available to them in terms of opportunities. No other experience was clearer to me than when my father took up and started a restaurant at the SINÉ for the temporary stay, the temporary restaurant business in the SINÉ for 2 weeks. This would have been 1985, I want to say. And it was the most revealing experience I had to the work ethic and the passion and commitment of the Filipino spirit. So starting SINÉ Institute was born out of my identity crisis. I want to put it that way. I'm going to put that as the kind of forefront statement, because as a second generation Filipino, you don't have the, I want to say, baggage of having gone through the struggle of what your parents have gone through to leave behind in the Philippines to come here. They shield you from the struggle and the things that they had to face growing up and trying to make an opportunity for themselves to come here. So all you get is really the family, the friends, the food, the fun, the faith. Those are the key things that you grow up with, but it really doesn't give you the baseline of where your culture is coming from. And there's very little to reference. And so when you're growing up, you find that you have an identity crisis, but you don't know it until you're later in your years. And so SINÉ Institute was really born out of a curiosity, and not only myself, but others who are second generation Filipino, and many conversations over the years that kind of revealed to me why I've been really adamant or seeking out opportunities to work with Filipinos, whether it's music, arts, business. I had always seek that out. For some strange reason, I was always, seeking that out. But I found that it was because I was always in search of what it meant to be Filipino. So I wasn't sure. And so when you're growing up, you kind of associate yourself with whatever you can assimilate yourself with in terms of culture and community. And the community that you're in, unless you have a lot of family and friends who are Filipino, you don't get that immersion and you don't get that background. I find that that's a similar story for many second generation Filipino in general, diaspora, not just in Canada. And so SINÉ Institute really was first and foremost just a film festival, but I didn't want to do it if it was just a film festival. And the people who were involved didn't want to do just a film festival. What we wanted to do was do something that was impactful, that could feed itself, because Filipinos were great at celebrating. There's no, how do we feed that cycle? So we discovered, there's a lot of Filipinos out there who are successful that you didn't realize. And then when you start connecting to those people, you start realizing how skilled, how talented they are, but they've been successful in their pursuit as an individual, enabling other people's successes and stories. What if we connected those people and those who are aspiring to be in this field or in the creative industries? If we were to connect them all and foster some collaboration, then what would be created out of that? That I think is such a great possibility and opportunity. And then we can celebrate that. And then there'd be new ideas, new stories, new creations that we could then really rally around and perhaps resonate with our experiences, not just the Filipino experience of our families and our parents. So that's really where SINÉ Institute started, really focusing on the education, the training, the development, the connection of those talents in a space that they could then be immersed in Filipino culture. That then is the festival. So we really focused in on providing stories that were familiar, like love teams and rom-coms and drama, but also, action and gore and blood and sexuality and, ideas that are taboo in a storytelling manner from a Filipino lens. I think really allowed for first-generation Filipinos and second-generation Filipinos to focus in on one topic and then provoke thought that then leads to conversation. So the first film festival that just passed was beyond anything that we could have imagined, because selfishly motivated by the pursuit of, figuring out what the baseline is for what my heritage and my culture is. And connecting first and second generation Filipino was really a goal of that festival. I found that we exceeded that because then you start seeing second generation Filipinos engaging with the culture, but also then bringing their friends who weren't even Filipino from different communities, different backgrounds, different cultures, who were just waiting for a chance to engage with Filipino culture because they've gone to eat with the family, been fed and have felt the Filipino hospitality. And so seeing them engage and second generation Filipinos really embracing that and being proud of showcasing what it meant to be Filipino to them by an assembly of storytelling and people like-minded into this creative industry, that we didn't imagine would happen. And so that was a result that went above and beyond what we felt we were trying to achieve. So for the future, you start realizing the impact, and so now it becomes a responsibility. People are now relying upon this on different levels. Emerging talents are relying upon this on the level that they want to progress into the next phase of their storytelling. Those who have plugged in and found an interest in filmmaking and television are now asking, okay, what's next? What else can I access? Trade delegates from the Philippines and Canadian producers here starting to ask the questions, okay, how do we collaborate on projects? And then the audience who came to see movies at the festival are now asking, okay, what's the next movie that I can see? I think we've got a good formula. I think we need to expand upon that formula. I want to be able for us to provide professionalized attachments to the industry through the unions. I also want us to expand upon the art, the science, and the business of this industry. I want to bridge the gap between Filipinos who are really great in storytelling right now, filmmaking right now, but also those who are doing animation, video game design, which I feel is the future of filmmaking, the gamifying of it, the AI side of it. We want to be able to show that Yes, the entire industry has a divide between filmmaking and virtual reality, and that we are at both ends. And the sooner we can make connective tissue between those two, we'll be now leapfrogging, the world in terms of ability to embrace the next format of storytelling. Representing in Filipino heritage and culture in media is really important and very underserved. The buzzword right now is BIPOC. It started off as, diversity, equality, and inclusion for many years, and now it's focused in on a community that is deemed as BIPOC. Well, what is BIPOC? It's Black, Indigenous, people of color. There's a lot of great support, community behind the Black community. They are very well organized and very great at providing support for their own and supporting any of their projects and their creations. Indigenous, same thing. Obviously, that's just a mandate of the government. But it's hard for the POC part of BIPOC to really galvanize. And us as Filipinos obviously are in that grouping, but the focus has never really been about any of those groups or those communities. And so I'd love to be able to see more of that representation and more of that support on all levels of government, one, and two, from the community itself to rally behind as much as it is for the Black community and the Indigenous community. I mean, we represent 1 million Filipinos in Canada, 300,000 of which are here in Toronto, in the Greater Toronto area. We are a force that is a sleeping giant that no one's really catered to, and I feel that we have our own needs as a community. We have our own desires for our families. Because of that divide between the first and second generation Filipino, I think it's so important to be able to bridge that and then move forward together. Because then the third generation, my kids, like I have a 3, 4, 7-year-old, what is their connection to Philippine culture if we don't do that now? So they're even further removed. And so I think that's where I would like to see representation be more than just representation on screen. It's representation in decision-making positions. It's in the infrastructure, in the foundation, in the decision-making process. Those who make decisions about where does the funding go, or where does the support go, or where does the energy go towards. I think if we are part of that fabric, that's what I mean by representation rather than just on screen. I'm hoping that future generations of Filipino culture can embrace all of it and be open-minded to it, because there's so much more to discover about it. Even now, just the background of how it became to be, like we are a fully formed mosaic. Like Philippines as a country is a fully formed mosaic from many different religions, many different cultural backgrounds, and it's hard to just pinpoint onto one as to why we are the way that we are, but we've been influenced by so many. And yes, sure, we've been colonized many times in the past, and so that mosaic is a bit forced. But I look at Canada and like we're a younger mosaic in comparison. So what does it mean to be Canadian in like 75 to 100 years from now? It's kind of like the same thing, I feel. It's not a colonization situation, but I feel like that's going to be the same situation where people are going to ask, okay, what is it that is meaning to be Canada? Because everyone's come from so many different places. So it's interesting to see those similarities when you start looking into the past of how Philippines came about. So I'm hoping for future generations that they'll have a clearer picture of what that is, because that also provides such a foundation for them to be able to build upon, rather than just assimilating into their surroundings. and imitating rather than being original. You know, I feel that you can only be original if you have a better understanding of self, and your foundation of self comes from your background and where you came from. So I'm hoping that that's the case for future generations. Mabuhay!